I'm excited for this one here. We're calling this one the diet deception. So I want to show you how you can leave fad diets behind for good. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to tap into the power of the brain and the way that the brain works to help you create permanent transformation. Because there's not a lot of point in losing weight only to gain it back again and get stuck in that what we call the yo-yo diet cycle where you lose weight and gain it, lose weight and gain it. And so what are we going to talk about today? Well, for those who don't know me, I'm going to give you a quick overview of who am I, so you know that I'm not just some random guy on the internet, that I'm actually qualified to talk about what it is that I do. And then from a brain-based perspective, I'm going to explain why we're attracted to quick fixes, why it is that diets don't work, and why they can actually be quite harmful for you, why I say that weight loss is a doorway, not a destination. Then I'll dive a little bit more into what do I mean by brain-driven weight loss, and then ultimately what is transformational coaching. So let's get to it. So my name is Coach John. I'm formerly morbidly obese. I've lost over 100 pounds. I'm a Precision Nutrition Level 2 Master Coach, as well as the head coach of Freedom Nutrition Coaching. And I take a psychology-based approach to weight loss. And if you look Freedom Nutrition Coaching on Google, you'll see that I have 95 five-star reviews, and I think it's somewhere around 138 or 145 on Facebook these days. So I share that with you because I want you to know that, and let's just show you this as well. Here's a gallery of some of my clients, for example. So I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know that not only do I talk about these things, I live them, and I have a proven track record of success in working with other people as well. So these things, they work. So why is it that we are attracted to quick fixes? So whenever you bring up the idea of I'd like to lose some weight, probably the first thing that somebody might say to you is, well, hey, have you ever tried this? And they're going to list some kind of fad diet. It could be a popular one like keto, or it could be a more obscure one like the military diet. Why is it that we're drawn as human beings to quick fixes? And I think ultimately the truth is we want to believe the promise that weight loss should be fast and easy, because that's what we've been marketed to for so long. Fitness and weight loss marketing has said it's easy. All you have to do is this, And so because of that, we've had our expectations shaped to believe that weight loss should be fast and easy. But when we understand our biology, we're going to recognize that weight loss is actually a little bit more difficult than we really want to acknowledge. So the uncomfortable truth is we have a famine biology, but we live in a feast world. So what I mean by that is our biology is not wired for us to live in a world where we have extremely abundant and cheap calories. We're wired to live in a world where we have food scarcity, and we need to be able to survive periods of time where we might not have access to food. That's why we have the ability to store fat. What this means is we're really good at storing fat, and we're not so good at burning it. Our body will naturally try to resist our efforts to lose weight because body fat, biologically speaking, is what we could call a famine reserve. It helps us survive. The other thing is we don't like to build more muscle than we need because biologically speaking, again, from this famine perspective, muscle is metabolically expensive. This is not me saying don't build muscle, but I'm just explaining why building muscle is also a slow and challenging process. And so this dynamic tension that's within ourselves, here's the other piece of the puzzle here. We have the sort of more primal or animal part of our nervous system wants us to stay comfortable, wants us to stay in our comfort zone, to be safe, to be warm, to be comfy, and not experience any discomfort or pain. But there's also the human part of us. I might use the word our soul. You might have a different way of expressing it, but there's something inside of us that makes us human. And we have this desire to grow and develop and better ourselves. And so we'll maybe find ourselves stuck between, on a Thursday night after a long day, all your brain wants you to do is sit on the couch and watch Netflix and eat, popcorn or chips or chocolate or something like that, because that just feels really good. But maybe you also have these goals where you'd like to achieve a weight loss goal, or maybe you want to be able to hike a mountain or things like that. And so you want to better yourself. And so you're like struggling between wanting to just be comfortable on the couch versus, let's say, choosing to do something active in the afternoon or the evening after a difficult day. So this is kind of the tension that we find ourselves living with. And so if you find yourself saying things like, well, I can't seem to find the motivation, understand that that's actually normal. Nobody's motivated all the time. So why do I say that diets don't work? And if you've tried to lose weight, multiple times, you probably find yourself saying or thinking, I've tried everything and nothing works for me. And the first thing I would say to that is that diets don't do work. What I mean by that is very often, let's say we're not really in the place mentally where we want to create change, but we know we should change. And so we might start a diet or a program or join a club or something like that, hoping that somehow the results are just going to appear, but we're not really ready to actually create change. The other idea behind a diet or 21-day reset or a 30-day reset or whatever, detox or sort of short-term programs are out there, the reality is a temporary change in behavior cannot produce permanent results. And so if we want to create permanent transformation, we actually have to change how we're living. And that's a little bit more difficult proposition because we have to decide what are the things I'm willing to trade in order to get to the health of the lifestyle I want to live. So the number one thing that really ruins progress for people is program hopping. So when we start a new program, it's actually kind of exciting, right? Because our brain starts to create a picture in our subconscious mind of how we're going to look and how we're going to feel when we accomplish this change. Now, that increase in dopamine is really, really important because that helps us to overcome our animal brain's resistance to change. But that dopamine high, so to speak, isn't going to last forever. And the reason for that is if your brain was to keep dopamine levels elevated chronically or on a more permanent basis, we think, oh, it'd be great. I'd be feeling pleasure all the time. Life would be great. But actually, you would become desensitized to it. And what that would mean is normal, everyday, simple pleasures would actually lose their meaning. And so it's natural that sort of the dopamine excitement that we feel when we start a new program is going to die down. And we're actually going to bump into the reality of trying to create change when the new habits we're trying to create bump into the old habits and lifestyle that we've kind of built for ourselves. And so when that happens, if we feel like, oh, I've lost motivation, this isn't fun anymore, I don't want to do this, it gets us hopping from program to program, actually chasing sort of that dopamine high again. And ultimately, that's going to ruin your progress because it's really truthfully, it's consistency that will produce long-term results. So now you hear me say that weight loss is a doorway, it's not a destination. I think it's important to understand that because we don't want to assign, let's say, a character judgment or a moral judgment about ourselves based on the number we see on the scale. What I mean by that is, let's just say you want to get to, 135 pounds if you're female, or you want to get to about 185 pounds if you're a male. These are common numbers that I hear when people tell me they want to lose weight. And so you think that at that number, you're going to be perhaps like a more, could I say, a virtuous person in a sense. And you're inclined to look at all the unhelpful behaviors that you've kind of had come into your lifestyle that have led you to being in a place of being overweight and create judgment. I must be lazy, or I've no motivation, or I'm a loser, or, really could get deeper into like negative self-talk and beating yourself up and so on. We want to avoid placing judgment about ourselves based on the number we see on the scale because really it's an indicator of the choices and decisions that we've made, but it is not an indicator of our value as a human being. And so when you have a number in mind that you think you'd like to get to this weight, you want to ask, what is that number really about? So let's just say, for example, for ladies, maybe you want to get to, again, I hear this number, usually 130, 140, sometimes 125 in terms of pounds. That's kind of the number that I hear commonly. Well, what you're really potentially looking for, if you scratch under the surface, is I'll say, well, when was the last time you weighed that, and what was your life like? Oh, it was when I was in my early 20s, and I could fit into the jeans, and I had lots of energy, and I felt attractive, and so on. So you're not really looking for 125. You're looking for a feeling. You're looking for life the way that it used to be and the way that you remember it. And so when you have that number in mind, you're actually thinking about how you're going to feel, how you're going to look, and how you're going to live at that weight. And so that's why I say weight loss gives us the opportunity to live life more fully. So sometimes it's actually, we live in a culture where it's deemed not necessarily in vogue to speak about weight loss. And I think that's partly like the pendulum swinging or the backlash against this sort of really unhelpful fitness culture where it shames people for struggling with their weight. But we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The truth is, getting to a healthy body weight means you're less likely to have obesity, less likely to have cardiovascular disease, and so on. But it's actually, not that many people wake up thinking, I don't want to have a heart attack, so I better lose weight. Some people might if they get a serious medical diagnosis. But really, we want to think about the opportunity to live life more fully. So I'll use myself as an example because I used to weigh 330 pounds. Now, at the time of recording this, I've got a son who's 7 months old. And he's a very active little boy. He just doesn't seem to stop moving every time he's awake. And because of that, I look at him and I go, okay, this kid is going to be like a mover, a runner. He's high energy, and I need to be able to keep up with him. And so I'm actually working on my cardiovascular conditioning because I want to be able to keep up with him and play with him. So for me, I'm not doing this type of exercise because I want to lose weight. I'm doing it because I want to be able to be physically active and present in my son's life. And this is what we call an emotionally compelling reason. Because ultimately, logic, while being valuable and helpful, isn't what's going to make us willing to be uncomfortable. It's going to be an emotionally compelling reason. Another example might be, let's just say I'm going through Costco or some kind of big supermarket, and I look at this jumbo-sized bag of chips, and I think my brain goes, because I'm a former binge-eating food addict, my brain goes, oh my gosh, I'd just love to eat that entire giant bag of chips. That'd feel amazing. But then I look at my son, and I go, I don't want to be a sideline dad. I want to be able to get on the floor and play with him. I want to be able to run after him. I want to be physically present in his life. And so my love for my son and my desire to be present in his life is more powerful than that sort of temporary urge to eat a giant bag of chips. And so that's why this emotionally compelling reason, because logically I think like eating those chips is unhealthy and, it'll make me fat again, or, I'll struggle with obesity again and so on. But really it's diving deeper into why do I really want this? What is this about in my life? And so that's why we call this the emotionally compelling reason. I think Simon Sinek in his book, Start With Why, would just call it finding your why. And if you're wondering how you might be able to do that, you could think about asking the question why 5 times. So really getting under the surface and getting to a deeper layer. So what is this brain-driven weight loss that I talk about? And ultimately the brain is the driver of our behavior. And a lot of approaches to lose weight really take this outside-in approach. Something is wrong with you, so we're going to impose these external rules on you and force you into this box or this straitjacket and try to force you to change. But if you haven't changed your internal environment, as soon as you take those restrictions away, you're going to fall back into your old patterns of behaviors. And this is a classic yo-yo dieting cycle. And so we want to take a step back and go, well, what is it that makes us do what we do, choose the actions we do? And there's a few different elements that are really connected to our brain, from our mindset, our beliefs, our sense of identity, who we see ourselves to be, along with our habits and behavior patterns. So let me give you a couple of examples to try to make this something you can picture. When I was 330 pounds, I kind of adopted this identity of the jolly fat guy. And there were some elements of being the jolly fat guy that were actually positive. So let's say, for example, whenever I went to a party, everyone was happy to see me because they knew that I was going to eat the food and be very appreciative of the food because I ate a lot of it. And so when I tried to lose weight, I wasn't ready to give up this identity of being the jolly fat guy because it was kind of like a social crutch. And so I would end up falling into these patterns of self-sabotaging behavior because attempts to lose weight, well, it logically made sense. It actually ran into conflict with my sense of identity. So really my sense of identity had to change from being the jolly fat guy. I'll give you another example here from a different angle with regards to our brain. I wonder if you've ever driven from one place to another. Maybe it's a familiar route you've driven a number of times, and you're able to, you drive there one day, and you go, oh my gosh, I don't even remember driving here, but yet somehow I got here safely. That's the incredible power of the brain, the midbrain, in fact. So it's the power of our brain to automate a behavior that we've done a number of times, and we call it forming a habit. So knowing that our brain has the ability to do this, we can tap into it and we can make use of it by trying to form habits. And maybe I'll do another video more specifically on how do we cultivate healthy habits and how do we overcome bad habits. But I really kind of want to stick with, this is more of a higher level overview here. So when we think about it, there's an emotional aspect, there's beliefs, so who we believe ourselves to be. There's our identity piece, along with habits and behavior patterns. All these different aspects that are connected to our brain that really shape our behavior. So unless we address our internal environment, we're unlikely to be able to create permanent change. So then I talk about transformational coaching, and really what is that? Because ultimately it's extremely difficult for us to change by ourselves. And there's actually a biological reason for this too. So when we go to change, we're stepping out of our comfort zone, and we're actually stepping into not only being uncomfortable, but a sense of vulnerability, because we're trying to adopt a new lifestyle. We're trying to learn some new behaviors. We're trying to learn some new skills. And from a more primal sort of animal brain perspective, it feels a little bit unsafe or insecure to try and do this. And when human beings we're herd animals, or we're pack creatures, we like to have human connection. And so when we're isolated and feeling insecure, our brain is more likely to rebel against our efforts to create change. But when we connect to another human being who, colloquially, we could say has got your back, is watching out for you, has your best interests in mind, and is helping and guiding you, that human connection tells your primal brain that it's safe to start creating change and be vulnerable. And this is why in the age of Google and information, that coaching is still a thing. And so, for example, in my program called Lifestyle 180, I really try to connect three key things. The science of metabolism, because it is important, and your metabolism is not written in stone. There are ways to boost your metabolism, and I have another video on that. We also want to talk about the psychology of behavior change. So understanding because remember, permanent weight loss requires permanent transformation, a permanent change in our behavior. We can't go back to our old habits that made us overweight. And so we need to understand the psychology of that. But I think for me, the linchpin of all of this is the compassion of human connection. So in the process of trying to create change, we're going to struggle, we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to mess up. And if you have this unhealthy relationship where you beat yourself up and you have negative self-talk and so on, it's not really going to help you create change. Now, compassion itself, I think, sometimes gets misunderstood, because it's not meant to be a quote-unquote get-out-of-jail-free card. What compassion actually is recognizing the very human element of struggling to create change. So let me give you another sort of real world example. So let's just say I come over and you're halfway through drinking a bottle of wine. You've had a hard day and you're halfway through a bottle of wine. Now, enabling an unhelpful behavior would be me saying, yeah, you've had a hard day. You might as well, you're already started. You might as well now just finish off the entire bottle of wine. That's not really helpful behavior, because it's not supporting you and your goals. That's what we call enabling. Now, the place of judgment would be different. It would be like, you dummy. Why are you drinking a bottle of wine? That's not helping you. All that's going to do is ruin your goals, and really talking down to you. Well, that doesn't help either. So compassion finds the middle ground and says, hey, you know what? It makes sense. And obviously, you're probably not going to speak exactly in these terms. So I'm just, but it makes sense that you're, because of what you went through today, that you're halfway through a bottle of wine. Your behavior makes sense. Your brain's trying to, in fact, I like to say all behavior makes sense. I don't mean that all behavior is helpful, but it makes sense if we understand why it's occurring. So it's like, let's understand why it is you're drinking this bottle of wine, and what problem the bottle of wine is solving for you in this moment, and see if there are some alternate solutions. So when I work with somebody, I think sometimes there's a tendency to think that the coach is the expert and I'm the dummy, and that's not true. What I actually want to treat this as a collaboration between two experts. So yes, I bring my expertise in nutrition and psychology, and I've worked with hundreds of clients, so I have quite a bit of experience in the world of weight loss, as well as my own lived experience. But ultimately, you are the expert of your own life experience, and I need that we need that input in order to successfully create change. And so what we want to do is, rather than try to saddle you with a bunch of rules that you have to try to follow from day one, we want to begin putting building blocks in place. So we want to maybe start with one key principle and say, let's try to put this in place. Let's figure out where it works for you, where it doesn't, and we're going to now shape this to suit your personal circumstances. So instead of me giving you rules that you must follow that I have assigned to you, we start with principles and say, let's shape this principle in a way that works for you. By you having an active hand in this, rather than me just dictating rules to you, you become empowered. And what this means is when we finish working together, now that if I'm no longer your coach, you're not just going to collapse and fall back into old habits because you played a key role in actually shaping this. And so I think that's why this is so important. Maybe lastly, I wanted to just touch on a free resource that I have for you that really, it'll give you a few more tools to work with from this brain-based perspective. So this is an ebook that I have. If you go to freedomnutritioncoach.com/book, you can get this guide called Crush Your Cravings. And it's a relatively short ebook. It's free of charge. And I want to show you how to help navigate your cravings from a brain-based perspective. But I also want to give you a couple of other things of value. I'm going to show you how to eat in a certain way that helps you to not only boost your metabolism, but break free from the mindless snacking cycle, and how you can actually sleep your way to a lower weight. And I know that sounds a little bit clickbaity, but it's true. You can actually do this. Now, I explain that in your Crush Your Cravings guide. And I'm going to give you a bit of an example. I'm going to show you how one of my 60-year-old clients lost 50 pounds after more than 20 years of dieting frustration. I include some really key elements of her life story. The reason why I put this in here is because I think many people watching this, you might be thinking, I've been struggling for X amount of time, or it's too late for me, and so on. And so I want to show you an example of really how powerful Lifestyle 180 can be by giving you this example here. Now, lastly, freedomnutritioncoach.com/book. You can go there, enter your email address, and I'll send you a copy of it. Now, lastly, I want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video to the end. I really genuinely appreciate it. And I want this to be valuable for you. I want this to be helpful. And I really would like to be able to create an interactive experience. And so I want you to feel that you can ask me anything. So you can email me, Coach John, Coach Jon, at freedomnutritioncoach.com. But also you can leave a comment or a review on this video. And in that review, you can actually ask a question and I'm able to reply to that. I really want to be able to create a more interactive experience here as well. So not just that you follow along, but that you're able to engage with me and, we can take somewhat general information like I've presented here and I can help to make it more specific for you. And so I'd love to be able to do that. And so if you'd like to ask me any questions, please feel free to leave me a review and ask a question in that review, and I'll do my best to get back to you. And also, as I said, Coach Jon, Jon, at freedomnutritioncoach.com. You're welcome to email me and ask any questions you have. Thanks again for listening. I hope this has been very helpful, and take care.